The rain fell in heavy sheets over the city that night. Neon lights flickered through the mist, reflecting in the puddles on the streets. The city looked alive, breathing in shadows and whispers. Most people hurried home, shoulders hunched against the cold, but Elara walked calmly, her small umbrella offering little protection against the storm. She was heading home from the library, her bag heavy with books, when she noticed the commotion ahead. A crowd had gathered near the corner of the street. Shouts and the sound of struggle reached her ears. Curiosity pulled her closer. Through the raindrops, she saw a man pinned against the wall by two masked figures. He was tall, dressed in a black coat that clung to him in the rain, his face partially hidden by the hood. Despite the danger, he stood tall, his movements sharp and precise, as if he were not afraid of being attacked. Something inside Elara told her she could not just walk away. She had always believed in helping others, no matter the risk. Heart pounding, she stepped forward. "Hey!" she shouted, her voice trembling slightly. "Leave him alone." The attackers paused, turning to her with cold, calculating eyes. They didn't seem used to interference. "You shouldn't be here, little girl," one of them said, his voice low and threatening. Elara's hands clenched at her sides. Fear surged through her, but so did courage. She had no weapons, no special skills, only her determination, and somehow that felt enough. "I won't let you hurt him," she said firmly. The attackers laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. One stepped forward, and for a moment Elara thought she might be too late. But then the man she had come to protect moved, fast, faster than she could have imagined. In a blur, he twisted free, grabbing the first attacker and throwing him against a wall. The second lunged, but he sidestepped with effortless precision, his movements like a shadow dancing in the rain. Within seconds, the two attackers lay groaning on the wet pavement. Elara's mouth went dry. She had never seen anyone move like that. Even in her wildest imagination, she couldn't have guessed such strength and skill belonged to one person. The man turned to her, his dark eyes meeting hers. For a moment, the rain seemed to slow, the world narrowing to just the two of them. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice deep, calm, almost hypnotic. Elara nodded, though she couldn't speak. Her heart raced not just from the fear, but from something else, something she didn't understand yet. "You shouldn't be here," he said again, softer this time. There was no anger in his tone, only concern. I couldn't just watch," she admitted. He studied her for a moment as if trying to measure her courage, her soul. Then he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "You have a brave heart." Elara felt a flush rise to her cheeks. Brave? She had only acted without thinking. Yet, hearing him say it in that quiet, commanding way made something stir inside her. Who are you?" she asked, finally finding her voice. The man hesitated. Then he spoke his name. Darius Vale. Something about the name made her catch her breath. She had heard whispers of him before, rich, powerful, feared by many. The man who controlled entire companies, who seemed untouchable and cold. And yet here he was, standing before her, vulnerable only in the smallest ways, yet more dangerous than anyone she had ever known. You're the Alpha, CEO, she said, unsure if she should even know what that meant. Darius's lips curved into a faint smile, a dangerous, knowing smile. "Yes, that is what they call me." Elara felt a strange mix of awe and fear. He was intimidating, yes, but not cruel. Not entirely. There was something else beneath that icy exterior, something she wanted to understand even though she barely knew him. "Thank you for saving me," he said quietly. Most would not dare to step in. Elara shook her head. "I didn't save you, really. You saved yourself." He tilted his head, considering her words, his dark eyes unreadable. "Perhaps, but you chose to stand here. That choice, it matters." Before Elara could respond, a shout rang from across the street. More masked figures appeared, moving quickly through the rain, their intentions clear. "Not again," Darius muttered, his gaze flicking to her, almost warningly. "Wait, I can help," she said without thinking. He stared at her for a long moment and then, unexpectedly, he nodded. "Follow my lead. Stay close." Ilara's heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea what she was getting into, but she trusted him. Somehow she had to trust him. They moved through the streets, shadows and rain masking their presence. Darius was precise, careful, and commanding, while Ilara followed as best she could. The attackers, though relentless, seemed unable to match his skill. At last they ducked into a narrow alley, hidden from the view of the new assailants. Both were breathing heavily, soaked to the bone, but unharmed. Darius turned to her again, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "You could have been hurt. Why did you risk yourself?" Ilara swallowed hard. I don't know, I couldn't let them hurt you. It felt wrong." His eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, as he studied her. Most people would have turned away. You did not. That is rare. She felt a strange warmth at his words, a mixture of relief and pride, but also an unsettling curiosity. Why did it matter to him so much that she had acted? "You should go home," he said, his voice returning to its usual calm, commanding tone. "It's dangerous out here." Ilara hesitated. I can't just leave." "What about them? Won't they try again?" Darius's eyes darkened. "They will. And if they find you, it could be worse." Her stomach tightened. The weight of his warning settled on her like a stone. And yet even in fear she felt a pull, an invisible thread connecting her to this man she had just met but already felt strangely tied to. "Listen," he said, his tone sharper now, urgent. "I need to know your name." Ilara opened her mouth to speak, but the sound of sirens in the distance made her hesitate. She couldn't stay. She couldn't explain anything. Not yet. I have to go," she said quickly. Before he could respond, she turned and ran, slipping through the wet streets, the rain soaking her completely, but somehow feeling alive, charged with a strange, dangerous excitement. Darius watched her disappear into the mist, a frown tugging at his perfect features. He didn't like being left in uncertainty. He didn't like feeling incomplete. Something about her stayed with him, lingering like a shadow he could not shake. He had faced countless enemies, controlled countless situations, yet this ordinary girl, brave and reckless, had unsettled him in ways no one else ever had. "I will find her," he whispered to himself. A promise more than a threat. And for the first time in years he felt something he had thought impossible. Anticipation. The city continued to rain, the night stretching endlessly before them, and somewhere in the distance the first threads of an extraordinary story were being woven, a story of bravery, fate, and a connection that neither of them could yet understand. The morning sun struggled to pierce the heavy gray clouds that hung over the city. Streets were damp, the rain from the previous night leaving puddles that reflected the flickering neon lights and the hurried steps of early commuters. Ilara walked carefully, her head down, trying to shake the memory of last night. She had saved herself by running, but her mind kept replaying the man she had saved, Darius Vale. He was nothing like anyone she had ever met. Tall, commanding, and somehow frightening, yet his eyes had shown a softness she had not expected. She had never imagined that someone so powerful could seem in fleeting moments almost vulnerable. Ilara shook her head. She could not think about him. She had her life to live, her studies, her simple routines. A powerful CEO, feared and untouchable, had entered her world, and she could not allow herself to dwell on it. Yet fate had other plans. Darius did not forget. His private world of towering offices, endless reports, and calculated decisions had been disrupted by one ordinary girl. A girl with no wealth, no influence, no claim to his world, yet she had looked at him without fear. That simple act had unsettled him in ways he had not known were possible. By mid-morning, Darius had already traced her steps from the night before. His staff had tried to dissuade him, citing privacy concerns and professional boundaries, but he ignored them. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand why she had acted as she had, why she had risked herself. And though he would never admit it, he wanted to see her again. Alara was at her small apartment when a knock echoed at her door. She froze, a chill running down her spine. Visitors were rare, especially this early in the morning. Her hand trembled slightly as she opened the door to find a man in a sharply tailored suit, standing in the soft morning light. His presence seemed to fill the small hallway. "You are Alara," he said calmly, his dark eyes assessing her as though trying to read her thoughts. "Yes," she whispered, unsure why she felt a mixture of fear and curiosity. "I am Darius Vale," he said. The name made her heart skip. He was here, at her door. I don't know why you are here," she stammered. "You don't even know me." "I know more than you think," he replied, his voice steady, almost hypnotic. "You saved my life. I need to thank you properly." Alara hesitated. She had not wanted recognition. She had only acted on instinct. And yet there was something in his gaze that made her stay, though every instinct told her to shut the door and run. "I don't need anything," she said, trying to sound firm. "It was just the right thing to do." Darius's lips curved into a faint smile, but it did not reach his eyes. It was brave. Most would have walked away. "I cannot forget that." She looked at him, noticing for the first time the subtle details, the faint shadows under his eyes, the lines that spoke of sleepless nights and constant responsibility. He was more human than anyone would believe from the stories. I need to leave," she said quickly, trying to break the tension though her heart was pounding. "I have things to do." Darius's gaze followed her every movement. "You are not just leaving, Alara. Not after what has happened. The city is dangerous. I cannot allow you to face threats alone." Ilara's eyebrows furrowed. "Threats? You mean them? The men from last night?" "Yes," he said simply. "And there may be others. People who would not hesitate to use you to reach me. You should not be exposed to that." Alara swallowed hard. She had never considered herself important to anyone, let alone someone like him, and yet the sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Why do you care?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. He paused, the rain from last night still lingering in the corners of his mind. "Because you are different. Most people obey, fear, or ignore me. You acted without thought for reward or fear. That is unusual." For a moment, silence filled the small apartment. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet tension inside this tiny room. "You are not like anyone I have met," he continued, his voice lower now, more private. "And I want to ensure you are safe." Alara felt her pulse quicken. Safe? Why did the word sound comforting coming from him, when fear had always accompanied strangers in the city? I don't know how you can protect me," she whispered. "I'm just ordinary." Darius stepped closer, not threatening, but with an undeniable presence that made the room feel smaller. "Ordinary does not mean powerless. And bravery is more than strength. You have that. You have heart." Alara looked away, unsure what to say. His words were sincere, yet they carried a weight that made her uneasy. She was just a simple girl, yet somehow he saw something she did not see herself. Days passed and Darius did not leave her life. He offered assistance subtly, small gestures that protected her without making her feel controlled. A car waiting for her when she left home, a message warning her of dangers in the city, a subtle presence that never intruded but always watched. Alara's curiosity about him grew. She wanted to understand the man behind the powerful title, the untouchable reputation, the stories whispered in fear and admiration alike. And despite herself, she found herself drawn to him, not just because he was dangerous or mysterious, but because there was a layer beneath the power, a fragility that she wanted to reach. One evening, they met in a quiet park, far from the city lights and the noise. The air smelled of wet earth and rain-soaked leaves. Darius walked beside her silently at first, his hands in his pockets, the evening mist curling around him like a shadow. "You are not afraid of me," he said finally, breaking the quiet. Alara shook her head. I don't know why I'm not. Maybe because you are different. I can't explain it. Different?" he repeated, intrigued. "How so?" You are powerful," she said carefully, choosing her words. "But you are not cruel. You could be feared, but you..." You care in your own way. You don't hide completely behind your reputation. For the first time, Darius allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. You notice things others do not. That is why I cannot ignore you, Alara. You see beyond the surface.
And seeing
is a dangerous thing in my world. Alara glanced at him, realizing the weight behind his words. He lived in a world of enemies, secrets, and hidden dangers. Yet he walked beside her, opening a small part of himself that no one else had earned. I don't understand your world, she said softly. It seems frightening, he nodded. It is. But the world is not just what you see. There are shadows and power, yes, but there is also loyalty, courage, and rare moments of light. You are one of those rare lights. Alara felt a warmth in her chest, a mixture of fear and curiosity. Darius had a way of making words feel like weighty truths, even when she barely understood them. Before she could respond, his phone rang, sharp and insistent. Darius checked it quickly, his expression tightening. Trouble, he muttered. What kind of trouble? She asked, her heart tightening. Complicated, he said, his gaze locking with hers. But you must leave now. Alara hesitated. She wanted to stay, wanted to understand him, wanted to be near the man who had disturbed her world so completely. But fear gnawed at her. She nodded, stepping back reluctantly. Darius watched her go, a storm of emotions behind his eyes. He had saved countless lives, commanded entire empires, and yet he had never felt this, unsettled. Alara's courage, her kindness, her light, it had entered his carefully controlled world and disrupted everything, and he could not ignore it. As she disappeared into the misty evening, Darius whispered to himself, a quiet promise that carried both danger and hope. I will not let her go. She is mine to protect, and more than that, she is mine to understand. The city moved on, unaware of the quiet tension between two lives about to intertwine in ways neither could imagine. The city at night had a quiet, almost eerie beauty. Streetlights flickered through the mist, reflecting on the wet asphalt like scattered stars. Alara walked home slowly, her mind filled with the events of the past days. She could not forget Darius Vale, the powerful man whose life she had saved. His presence lingered in her thoughts like a shadow she could not shake. She knew she should stay away, keep her life simple and safe. Yet something about him pulled at her curiosity. The more she tried to avoid him, the more her heart insisted she understand him. Who was the man behind the title of Alpha CEO? What drove him to care so deeply, when he seemed untouchable and distant to the world? Meanwhile, Darius sat in his office, overlooking the sprawling city below. The rain had returned, tapping against the large windows. He stared at the streets, but his mind was elsewhere. On the girl who had refused to fear him, who had risked herself to help a stranger. She is extraordinary, he muttered to himself. Ordinary in appearance, yet unlike anyone I have ever met. He had tried to keep his distance. He told himself it was for her safety and for his own. But the more he stayed away, the more he felt an emptiness he had never known. Every meeting, every decision, every calculated move in his empire now felt hollow without the thought of her. One evening he decided to act. He could no longer ignore the pull between them, no longer allow distance to protect either of them from curiosity, or perhaps something stronger. Alara was walking home from the small bookstore she often visited, the cool autumn air brushing against her face. She enjoyed simple things, the smell of old books, the quiet streets, and the feeling of rain on her skin. That night, however, a shadow fell across her path. Good evening, Alara. She turned sharply, her heart jumping. There he was, Darius, standing as if he had appeared from the mist itself. His coat clung to him in the light drizzle, his presence both commanding and calm. Mr. Vale, she whispered, startled. I didn't expect to see you again. I did not expect to leave it this way, he said, his voice steady, yet carrying a rare softness. I cannot allow you to walk alone in this city. Not when there are people who wish to harm you, or use you to reach me. Alara felt a shiver of fear, but also a strange sense of comfort. I can take care of myself. I know, he said, stepping closer. But I also know you are not a fighter. Not in my world. You need protection, not because you are weak, but because danger surrounds us both. His words, calm and serious, unsettled her in a way she could not describe. The idea that he cared for her safety was flattering yet frightening. She had never imagined a man so powerful would even notice her, let alone worry about her. They walked together, the night air cool around them. The silence between them was comfortable, yet charged with unspoken thoughts. Elara noticed the way he walked, confident, controlled, yet with a subtle awareness that he was always ready for danger. "You have a rare strength," he said quietly after a while, breaking the silence. "Not the kind the world recognizes, but the kind that matters. Courage, heart, honesty." Elara blushed slightly, unsure how to respond. Compliments from him felt strange, almost overwhelming. She had never received attention like this before, especially not from someone so commanding, so untouchable. "Why do you see me this way?" she asked softly. "Why do you care about me?" He stopped, turning to face her fully. Rain fell around them, droplets catching the light of the street lamps. "Because you are not like the rest," he said simply. "You are brave, kind, unafraid to act when it matters. Most people fear power. You do not, and that makes you dangerous in your own way." Elara felt a warmth rise in her chest. "Dangerous?" she repeated, uncertain if it was meant as a compliment or a warning. "In a way," he admitted, "but also special. I cannot ignore that, and I do not wish to." They continued walking, and for the first time, Elara felt that she could understand a small part of his world. It was dangerous, yes, but also filled with moments of unexpected honesty, quiet gestures, and rare glimpses of humanity. Darius's world was not one she belonged to, yet being with him made her feel alive in ways she had never known. Days turned into nights, and their meetings became more frequent. Darius would appear unexpectedly, not as a threat, but as a quiet presence that made her heart race. He would accompany her home, watch over her as she studied, and occasionally offer advice about the city and its dangers. Elara began to see him differently. Behind the power, the control, and the fear, there was a man who had been shaped by betrayal, loss, and responsibility. A man who had learned to command the world around him, yet longed for something simple and real, something she could provide without even trying. One evening, they found themselves in a quiet garden, hidden behind the city's walls. The flowers glistened with rain, and the soft scent of damp earth filled the air. Darius leaned against the stone railing, watching the city below, while Elara wandered among the plants, her fingers brushing the wet petals. "You find beauty in small things," he observed, his voice thoughtful. "You notice things that others ignore. That is rare." Elara turned to him, smiling softly. "I just try to see what is real. The world can be harsh and cruel. It's important to notice what is good while you can." Darius looked at her, his dark eyes studying every expression, every movement. "And yet you face danger without hesitation. Most people would run. You confront it, even when it terrifies you." "I don't know why," she admitted. "I just can't ignore someone in need, even if it's risky." He nodded slowly. "That is why I cannot leave you alone. You have touched something in me I thought was long buried, and I am not used to feeling this way." Elara's heart skipped. His words were honest, filled with a rare vulnerability that she had glimpsed only once before. Darius Vale, the untouchable alpha CEO who controlled everything around him, was opening a part of himself to her. I don't know if I can understand your world," she said softly. "It seems complicated, dangerous." "It is," he admitted. "But danger does not always come from the outside. Sometimes it comes from trust, from letting someone close. That is harder than any enemy I have faced." For a long moment they stood in silence, the rain continuing to fall gently around them. The city's noise was distant, insignificant compared to the quiet intensity between them. "You must know," Darius said finally, his voice low. "There are people who wish to harm you because of me. They will not hesitate, and they will not show mercy." Elara's stomach tightened. She had not expected the dangers of his world to reach her so directly. "Then I want to help," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to understand, to be part of it." Somehow, he studied her carefully, his expression unreadable. "It will not be easy. You will face fear, uncertainty, and danger. But if you truly choose this, I will not hold you back. I will protect you, yes, but you must also be ready to face the consequences." Elara nodded, determination settling in her chest. "I am ready. I want to face it. With you." Darius's eyes softened almost imperceptibly. "Then we walk this path together," he said, "and we will see where it leads." The night grew darker, yet for the first time neither of them felt entirely alone. Two worlds, his of power and danger, hers of courage and kindness, were beginning to intertwine. And though neither knew what awaited them, A bond was forming that neither could deny. As they left the garden, the distant sound of sirens echoed through the streets, a reminder that their peace would not last. Shadows lurked, enemies waited, and the city was full of unseen threats. But for now, they walked side by side, their connection growing stronger with every step, unaware of how much their lives would soon change. The city's streets were quiet, but the quiet was deceptive. Shadows stretched long under flickering streetlights, and the air carried the faint smell of rain mixed with danger. Ilara walked beside Darius Vale, their steps careful and deliberate. She had chosen to be part of his world, to trust him despite the risks, and now every movement she made felt like a step deeper into unknown territory. Darius had insisted she stay close, guiding her through back alleys and narrow streets where danger could hide in every shadow. His presence was both comforting and unnerving. He moved with a precision that suggested he had been trained for every possible threat. Yet there were moments, fleeting, almost invisible, when he glanced at her as if worried, protective, something she could not yet fully understand. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low and urgent. "There are people who would use you to get to me." "Do not wander," Ilara nodded, her heart pounding. "I understand." He studied her for a moment, then added softly, "You have no idea how valuable that bravery is, how rare it is." She looked at him, seeing not just the CEO, the man of power and fear, but the person who had been shaped by danger and loss. There was something human beneath the surface, something only she seemed to notice. As they turned a corner, a sudden movement caught their attention. A figure stepped out from the shadows, a masked stranger moving with intent. "Stay behind me," Darius ordered instantly. Ilara froze, unsure whether to obey or act, but instinctively she stayed close. Darius stepped forward, his movements fluid, controlled. He faced the stranger, his gaze darkening. "You should not have come here," Darius said calmly, yet with an edge that warned of imminent danger. The stranger did not respond. Instead, he lunged forward. Darius moved before Ilara could even think, blocking the attack with precise force. The sound of a struggle echoed through the empty streets, but Darius was swift, calculated. Within moments, the stranger was subdued, but another figure appeared from a different shadow, forcing Darius to act again. Ilara's heart raced. She had never seen anyone move with such skill, such confidence. Every strike, every dodge, every movement seemed effortless yet lethal in its precision. And yet she realized with a strange clarity that he would never harm her. His focus was entirely on the threat. When the last attacker fell back into the shadows, defeated but alive, Darius turned to her, his breathing steady despite the fight. "You are unharmed?" he asked, his tone calm but tinged with concern. Yes," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "Thanks to you." He nodded, his dark eyes softening just a fraction. "It is my duty, and my choice. No one harms those I care for." Ilara felt a warmth rise in her chest, mixed with fear and admiration. She had chosen this dangerous path willingly, but seeing him in action, witnessing his power, made her realize just how much danger she had invited into her life. "Why do you care so much?" she asked quietly. "I am just ordinary." "You are not ordinary," he said firmly. "You are brave. You are kind. You are rare. Most people would have fled, but you stayed. That is why I cannot turn away." Ilara looked at him, her mind spinning. He was powerful, dangerous even, yet he spoke as if her presence mattered to him in a way she could not yet fully comprehend. Days passed, and the tension between them grew, not just from the threats that stalked the city, but from the bond forming between them. They met often in quiet places, empty parks, hidden gardens, rooftops where the city lights spread like stars below. Each meeting was filled with unspoken understanding, glances that lingered longer than necessary, and conversations that revealed more than words could say. One evening, they found themselves on a deserted rooftop. The wind was strong, carrying the scent of rain and the distant hum of the city. Darius leaned against the railing, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "You should not be here," he said softly, almost to himself. "I want to be," Ilara replied, stepping closer. "I want to understand everything, even the danger." He turned to her, his dark eyes studying her face. "You do not understand what you ask. My world is not safe. There are enemies, traps, and shadows you cannot see. I know, she said, but I do not care. I want to face it with you. For a moment, silence fell between them. Then, unexpectedly, a message arrived on Darius's phone. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. Trouble, he muttered. Alara's stomach tightened. She had begun to sense that danger was never far from him, but hearing it confirmed made her heart race. We must leave, he said, taking her hand. She felt a surge of warmth at the touch, a mixture of fear and reassurance. They moved quickly, weaving through the city streets with practiced precision, yet despite their efforts, a shadow seemed to follow them, slipping through the cracks of the night. Finally, they reached a small, secluded courtyard. Darius stopped and turned to her, his expression serious. You must understand, he said quietly, that choosing this path means accepting the risk. You may face fear, danger, even loss, but I cannot let anyone harm you. That is my promise. Alara looked into his eyes, seeing not just the CEO, but the man who had saved her life, who had trusted her with his presence, who had opened a part of himself that no one else had touched. I understand, she said firmly. I am ready. Whatever comes, I will face it with you. Darius's gaze softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through his usual control. Then we face it together, he said, and we will see where this path leads. As they stood there, the night seemed to hold its breath. The city's distant sounds faded, leaving only the quiet between them. For the first time, neither felt alone. Their worlds, his of power and danger, hers of courage and kindness, were beginning to merge. Yet even as they shared this quiet moment, the shadows were closing in. Enemies, unseen and patient, were moving closer. Darius knew that protecting her would require everything he had, and more. He could not allow her to be harmed, not when she had chosen to trust him. The night stretched on, heavy with tension and anticipation. Rain began to fall again, soft at first, then heavier, washing over the city and over them. Darius pulled his coat around Alara, shielding her from the cold, and she leaned against him, feeling both safety and a thrill of danger. You are brave, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. But even the brave need protection sometimes. I know, she replied, her hand brushing against his. And I trust you. For a moment, time seemed to pause. The city, the danger, the threats, all faded into the background. There was only the quiet bond between them, fragile but growing stronger. But as the rain fell, a distant sound reached them, a faint echo of movement, of someone following, waiting for the right moment to strike. Darius's eyes narrowed, his senses alert. They are coming, he said quietly. We are not safe yet. Alara's heart raced, but she did not pull away. Instead, she gripped his hand tighter. She had chosen this path, and she would face it with him, no matter what shadows awaited. Darius felt a surge of protectiveness, stronger than anything he had felt before. This was no longer just about survival or power. It was about keeping her safe, about protecting the rare light she brought into his dark world. And yet, even he could not foresee the challenges ahead. The shadows were patient, and the night was only beginning to reveal the dangers that lay in wait. The city had never felt darker than that night. Rain poured from the sky like silver threads, soaking every street, every rooftop, every shadowed corner. Alara walked beside Darius Vale, her small frame dwarfed by his presence, yet her heart was steady. Fear lingered, but so did determination. She had chosen this path, and now she would face whatever came with him. They know we are here, Darius said, his voice low, calm yet edged with steel. His eyes scanned the rain-slick streets, reading every shadow, every movement. They are patient. They will strike when they think we are vulnerable, but we will not give them that chance. Alara nodded, gripping his hand tightly. I am ready, she whispered. Whatever comes, I am ready with you. Darius looked down at her, a rare softness breaking through his usual control. You have no idea how much that means, he said quietly. You could have turned away, walked back to your simple life. But you stayed. You chose to trust me, and that makes you stronger than you realize. They moved forward, weaving through the rain-soaked streets, their senses alert. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. Darius's instincts were perfect. He led them through narrow alleys, avoiding the main roads where danger lurked. Yet even with all his skill, he knew the night would test them beyond anything they had faced before. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the mist, a masked attacker, fast and deliberate. Darius moved instinctively, placing himself between Ilara and the threat. The attacker lunged, but Darius was faster, deflecting the strike with precise force. The clash of bodies echoed through the empty street, yet Darius's focus never wavered. Ilara watched in awe. He was powerful, skilled, and yet he was not reckless. Every movement protected her, even as he faced danger head-on. She felt a surge of courage, her own bravery reinforced by his presence. "Stay close," he shouted over the sound of rain. She obeyed, moving beside him, her steps steady despite her racing heart. She was learning slowly to trust not only his protection but her own instincts. Together they were stronger. More figures appeared from the shadows surrounding them. Darius's eyes narrowed. "They think numbers matter," he muttered. "They are wrong." With careful precision he moved, blocking attacks, disarming threats, guiding Ilara through the chaos. She followed, trusting him completely, yet taking her own small actions, dodging, stepping aside, helping when she could. Every movement was a test of their bond, of their growing understanding of each other. Finally, the last attacker fell back into the shadows, defeated but alive. Darius took a deep breath, his dark eyes scanning the streets. "It is not over," he said quietly. "They will return, and next time they may be more dangerous." Ilara looked at him, her chest heaving. I am not afraid," she said. "Not when I am with you." Darius's expression softened, a rare, genuine smile touching his features. "Your courage. It humbles me," he said. "You have no idea how much you have changed me. I have lived my life commanding, controlling, yet you have shown me something different, something human." For a moment, the rain seemed to slow, the world shrinking to just the two of them. Ilara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never imagined that someone so powerful could value her so deeply, could see her heart and not just her actions. "We cannot stay here," Darius said finally, breaking the quiet. "They will not stop, but we can choose where the next move is made." He led her to a hidden building, a place few in the city knew existed. Inside, it was warm and dry, a stark contrast to the storm outside. Darius allowed her a moment to catch her breath, then spoke again. "Ilara," he said, his voice low and serious, "I need to tell you something. You have changed my life in ways I did not expect. I am used to control, to power, to solitude. Yet you have shown me trust, courage, and honesty, and I cannot ignore that." Ilara looked at him, unsure of what he meant. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I am telling you," he said, stepping closer, "that I care for you, more than I ever thought possible. And I want you to know that whatever comes, I will protect you. Not just because I must, but because I want to. You are important to me." Her heart skipped a beat. The words were unexpected, yet they felt true, undeniable. She had feared the dangers of his world, feared losing herself in it, yet here he was, admitting his feelings, trusting her with his vulnerability. "I care for you too," she admitted softly. "Even though I barely understand your world, I trust you." Darius's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with a deep intensity. "Then we face this together," he said. "No matter what dangers, no matter what shadows. Together." The rain continued to pour outside, a relentless reminder of the city's unpredictable danger. But inside, a bond had formed, stronger than fear, stronger than the threats that lingered in the darkness. Suddenly, a noise from outside caught their attention. A vehicle moving fast through the wet streets, headlights cutting through the mist. Darius's jaw tightened. "They are coming," he said. Ilara's heart raced, but she did not step back. She trusted him and she trusted herself. Together they prepared for what was coming. The vehicle stopped and several figures emerged, moving with careful precision. Darius stepped in front of Ilara, his presence commanding. "Do not underestimate me," he said, his voice calm but deadly. The attackers hesitated, sensing the difference between him and any ordinary man. And then, without warning, the confrontation began. Ilara moved with him, dodging, guiding, and helping when she could. She realized that her courage, combined with his skill, made them a formidable pair. Every movement was synchronized, a silent understanding between two people who had come to trust each other completely. Finally, the last attacker fell, and the streets were quiet once more. Darius turned to Ilara, his expression softening. "It is done." "For now," he said. Ilara exhaled, relief washing over her. "We did it," she said softly. "Yes," he replied, his dark eyes fixed on hers. "Together." For a long moment they stood in the rain, the city around them alive with distant lights and faint sounds. The danger had passed for now, but the bond between them was undeniable, unbreakable. Darius reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "Alara," he said quietly, "you are no longer just part of my world. You are part of me, and I cannot imagine my life without you." Her chest tightened and she stepped closer. "And I cannot imagine mine without you," she whispered. In the pouring rain, amidst the shadows and the danger, they found a moment of peace, a connection born of courage, trust, and shared risk. The world around them remained dangerous, unpredictable, but together, they were stronger than any threat. For the first time, Darius allowed himself to hope, not just for safety, but for something more, a future where trust, courage, and love could coexist in a world built on power and fear. And as they walked back through the rain-soaked streets side by side, neither of them spoke. Words were unnecessary. Their bond, forged in danger and courage, needed no explanation. It was enough to know that together, they could face anything. The night stretched on, dark and full of possibilities, but for Alara and Darius, the shadows no longer held fear. They held trust, understanding, and the promise of a connection that neither would ever let go. The city was vast, the threats many, but in each other, they had found something rare, a light in the darkness, a bond unbroken, and a love that had grown from courage and destiny. And for the first time, both of them knew that whatever came next, they would face it together.